South Korea has proposed reopening military talks with North Korea for the first time in 7 years, marking a significant shift in Seoul's approach to managing tensions along one of the most heavily militarized borders in the world. The move comes amid repeated allegations of violations along the Military Demarcation Line, and as South Korean President Lee Jae Myung pursues a strategy aimed at reducing risks of confrontation and rebuilding confidence between the two Koreas, which technically remain at war. The initiative was announced in Seoul following months of increased activity and incidents within the demilitarized zone. Since taking office in June, President Lee has emphasized that preventing escalation along the peninsula requires dialogue, transparency, and restored military communication channels. His administration is offering engagement without preconditions, representing a clear departure from the more hardline policy maintained by the previous conservative government. During a briefing in Seoul, South Korean Deputy Minister for National Defense Policy Kim Hong-cheol outlined the proposal in direct terms, stressing the need for practical measures to prevent miscalculation. He stated that the South Korean military now seeks direct discussions with its northern counterpart to establish a mutually recognized reference line for the Military Demarcation Line, which runs through the 4-kilometer-wide demilitarized zone. The demilitarized zone, known as the DMZ, stretches approximately 250 kilometers across the Korean peninsula. It serves as both a buffer and a constant point of tension between the two Koreas. Incidents involving military patrols, construction activity, and tactical movements have been documented along the area, prompting warnings from Seoul and messages urging North Korean troops to withdraw when they cross into restricted zones. As the briefing began, President Lee Jae Myung entered the room for a scheduled appearance before the press. The event marked one of his administration's most high-profile efforts to publicly articulate its approach toward Pyongyang. The president stood before assembled media and emphasized the seriousness of the situation. Footage from the briefing shows him entering the room, taking his position at the podium and addressing the press in a measured tone. He spoke against the backdrop of mounting concerns that North Korean construction and engineering units had repeatedly approached or crossed the demarcation line while laying mines, installing tactical roads, and building new fencing structures. South Korean military reports indicate that several such incidents prompted warning shots and efforts to communicate directly with North Korean forces, reinforcing the need for renewed dialogue. In the briefing room, the message was clear. Seoul is seeking to stabilize the border environment before a miscalculated action leads to a larger confrontation. The request for talks aims to reintroduce mechanisms that previously helped prevent accidental clashes, including the communication channels halted in recent years. As part of the official announcement, Deputy Minister Kim Hong-cheol delivered a prepared statement. In his first recorded remarks, he said, "To prevent accidental clashes and ease military tensions, our military officially proposes that the two sides hold inter-Korean military talks to discuss the establishment of a clear reference line for the MDL." His statement underscored the practical objective of the proposed meeting, creating clarity around the military demarcation line to prevent any misinterpretation of boundaries, particularly at a time when physical markers may shift due to construction or environmental changes. The background to this proposal extends beyond recent incidents. Since 2018, formal military talks between the two Koreas have been suspended, and many confidence-building measures established during that period have since deteriorated. Hotline links have gone silent, liaison offices have been dismantled, and joint agreements on reducing military activities near the border have been effectively abandoned. Along the DMZ, scenes from Panmunjom, the historic truce village where the Korean War armistice was signed in 1953, show the symbolic and strategic importance of the area. Footage from the region captures the North Korean flag raised above Kijongdong, a village situated on the northern side of the zone. The image reflects the persistent division that has shaped the peninsula for decades. Further footage from Panmunjom shows the controlled and heavily monitored environment where soldiers from both sides stand guard, often within visible distance of each other. These visuals highlight both the rigidity and the fragility of the armistice arrangement, which has governed the peninsula for more than 70 years in the absence of a formal peace treaty. The South Korean Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism later released additional material from its e-brief service, including a complete recording of Kim Hong-cheol's full remarks. In his second statement, he called on Pyongyang to provide a constructive response. He said, "We look forward to a positive and swift response from the North to our proposals to ease tensions on the Korean peninsula and restore military trust." This appeal emphasized Seoul's intention to open the door without preconditions, presenting the talks not as a concession, but as a necessary step to reintroduce stability in a rapidly shifting security environment. Footage from Paju, located near the western section of the DMZ, further illustrates the tense context. The entrance to the Tongil Bridge, known as the Unification Bridge, appears quiet but heavily monitored. The bridge leads toward Panmunjom and symbolizes the gateway to one of the most sensitive and closely watched military areas in East Asia. Guard posts near the DMZ reinforce the sense of caution that defines daily operations along the border. In recent months, South Korea's military has detailed a series of confrontations involving North Korean units who, according to Seoul, crossed into the southern side of the demarcation line during construction activity. These trespasses, often brief but significant, triggered warning measures from the South Seoul states that its forces issued verbal alerts and fired warning shots in response, a standard protocol designed to signal the need for immediate withdrawal. Reports from South Korean officials assert that North Korean soldiers were observed conducting engineering work, including the installation of tactical roads and fences, as well as deploying new mines near the line. Such activities have raised concerns that new defensive structures could alter the physical characteristics of the border, creating potential points of ambiguity regarding the exact boundary. Against this backdrop, President Lee's administration has been working to reverse the breakdown in communication channels that followed the collapse of inter-Korean diplomacy in previous years. The administration views the restoration of military contact as one of the most immediate steps necessary to de-escalate risks along the border. Visuals from Panmunjom reinforce how sensitive the area remains. Soldiers standing guard at the control posts illustrate the constant vigilance required on both sides of the demarcation line. Footage shows South Korean personnel stationed near the joint security area, with the characteristic blue and concrete buildings marking the site where armistice negotiations have historically taken place. Additional scenes show soldiers standing watch near structures that symbolize decades of unresolved conflict. Despite its name, the Truce Village remains a tightly controlled location, reflecting the reality that the Korean War has never formally ended. Along the northern side, the flagpole in Kijongdong remains a prominent feature. The village, sometimes referred to as a propaganda village by South Korea, remains largely uninhabited yet highly symbolic, with its tall flagpole visible from across the border. More footage from February 2023 shows soldiers positioned close to the borderline, emphasizing the continued need for accurate communication and risk management. The terrain in these areas is rugged, and even minor movements can be interpreted as military provocations without clear and reliable channels of communication. The historical context of these tensions dates back to 1953, when the armistice agreement halted active hostilities but did not establish permanent peace. This framework continues to govern military behavior on both sides. In the absence of a formal peace treaty, any incident along the MDL carries the potential for escalation, particularly when the line is crossed or approached by military units engaged in construction or tactical operations. South Korea's decision to offer talks aligns with the government's broader plan to reduce confrontation and stabilize relations through diplomacy. President Lee has emphasized that restoring trust at the military level is essential before progress can be made in any political or economic discussions. The proposal also reflects Seoul's assessment that recent events along the MDL could lead to unintended clashes unless preventive measures are taken. By calling for talks, South Korea aims to reintroduce a structured dialogue focused specifically on operational safety, demarcation clarity, and procedures for deconfliction. While Pyongyang has not yet responded to the proposal, Seoul's approach signals that the administration sees immediate value in opening communication channels regardless of broader political conditions. The call for talks is framed as a practical step necessary for reducing risks and preventing any further incidents along the border. The reintroduction of military dialogue would mirror past efforts in 2018, when both Koreas held discussions aimed at reducing military activity near the border and dismantling guard posts. Many of those agreements have since been suspended or reversed, resulting in renewed concerns along the DMZ. South Korean officials maintain that dialogue is necessary to establish transparency about ongoing construction activity near the line, particularly regarding mine laying and tactical installations that could shift or obscure the demarcation line's position. A clear reference line, they argue, would reduce the possibility of accidental crossings and provide a common framework for patrol movements. The Ministry of National Defence continues to monitor activity along the border, and officials have stated that they will maintain defensive readiness while pursuing diplomacy. Seoul has indicated that it will continue issuing warnings and protective measures if further violations occur, but says that these incidents underscore the urgency of restoring communication. As the situation remains fluid, South Korean authorities have reiterated their willingness to begin talks immediately. They note that the proposal does not require preconditions and focuses solely on operational matters necessary to stabilize the border. The proposal does not address broader political issues or nuclear negotiations, but officials argue that even limited military dialogue could serve as a foundation for reducing tensions. The emphasis remains on the practical management of the MDL and prevention of accidental clashes. For now, South Korea awaits a formal response from Pyongyang. The United Nations Command, which oversees the armistice, continues to observe developments but has not issued detailed public assessments of the latest incidents. Across the DMZ, guards remain stationed as they have for decades, and the demarcation line continues to mark both the end of the Korean War's fighting and the beginning of an unresolved conflict that shapes regional security. The proposal for talks represents an attempt to reduce the risks that come with this status quo and to re-establish a basic level of mutual understanding along one of the world's most sensitive military boundaries. As Seoul's message stands, the priority is preventing escalation, clarifying boundaries, and restoring communication channels that have remained inactive for years. Whether Pyongyang will respond positively remains uncertain. South Korea's proposal marks the first formal attempt to reopen military dialogue since 2018. The offer seeks to reduce tensions, ensure clarity along the military demarcation line, and prevent accidental clashes in a region where even minor incidents can carry significant consequences. The situation remains unchanged as South Korea awaits North Korea's response to its proposal for renewed military talks aimed at stabilizing conditions along the demilitarized zone.